Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Good morning, everyone. You guys all there? Anybody there?
Good morning, Prof.
Just checking. I see names, but I don't hear any voices or see any faces. So good morning. Happy New Year to everyone. I hope everyone's wide awake on this Wednesday, first Wednesday of 2021. Okay, so let's get started since it's already after 8. So just to update everyone before we actually begin our class. So this is already week 11. And as we know, week 13 and week 14, you are supposed to be doing presentations in class. Okay, so week 13 and week 14, we have set aside for you guys to do your presentations. Okay. So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that first before we start, okay? So let me just pull up the Pucha Blast here. All right, so next week I will send around a sign-up sheet for weeks 13 and 14 for the presentations, okay? So just a few things to remind you about the presentations before we start. So I'm asking you to present your assignment 2 in presentation form for weeks 13 and 14. Very short presentation, just 7 to 8 minutes each, okay? So of course, most of you, I'm sure, are doing it in pairs, right? You have a partner. And so you can figure out who wants, who's gonna present. You can split it, up to you. I don't care how you do that. You guys can decide on that one. You can have one presenter representing both of you, of your team. That's fine too. But somebody should present, okay? Just 7 to 8 minutes, very brief. Just give a sort of a rundown, an outline of your project, what you, according to those the main format that I provided for you, okay? And that'll be it. And then since we have about 48 students, we figure there'll be about 24, 25 presentations. So we have 2 weeks to do it. So in 3 hours, we can probably say 10 minutes each. So that's about 6 per hour. So we should be able to cover it in 2 weeks, okay? So next week, I will put up a sign-up sheet, all right, for that. One thing we did not discuss is the due date for the written report, okay? For the written report, the full report, I didn't put up a due date. So I prefer if we had some negotiation about that. I want to hear your opinion on when you would like to have the report submitted by. Okay, so it can be as early as week 14, or I can delay it, I can delay it a week maybe. So for example, like I think our class ends on, hold on, let me pull up the calendar here. All right, so our class ends, our last day of class is the 28th, which is actually Taipusam. So, oh, I didn't realize it's Taipusam, our last day of class. Okay, so we may have to reschedule that hour so that we can finish the projects. If we can't finish the presentations on the 27th, we may have to find another hour where we can meet to finish the presentations. Okay, or what we can do is I can ask you to record your presentation and then you can just upload it to my YouTube, all right? So for those who have still have to finish on the 28th, maybe we'll do that. If we don't have time, if we run out of time on the 27th, I'll ask you to just record your presentation and then upload it to YouTube. All right, so we'll have to deal with that later. So for example, if we say that last day of class is the 28th of January, how much more time do you guys want to have to submit your projects, your written projects? I want to hear from you. What do you suggest? Any suggestions? It can be any time, actually it can be any time up until the final exam. Okay, so our final exam is on 23rd of February. Okay, final exam is on 23rd of February. All right, so I can go up to the last day, I would say, is 16th February. Okay, I need some time to do your marking. And I still haven't finished your McFarland marking assignments, so I apologize for that. I just have not had the time to finish them. So I can go up to the 16th. All right, so anytime anytime between the 28th of January, which is week 14, the last class, all the way until 16th of February. Okay, so when would you like the assignments to be due in? What is your suggestion? Just speak out. You don't have to raise your hand. Just speak out, shout out, whatever it is, or you can write it in the chat box. Okay, Sugeta said 16th February. Amir said 31st January. Okay, any others? Sugita wants to have all the time she needs. Anyone else? Come on, let's hear from you. Okay, another 16th. Oh, January 31st. 16th. Okay, so it looks like either 31st January or 16th, because everybody wants the full 16th. Okay, all right. That's fine. Nadira just wants February, the whole month. Well, I can't give you the whole month. I can give you to the 16th. Okay, Nadira? Okay, so it looks like for those of you who have responded that, Hazik, 10th January. Okay, Nadira, 16th February. Hazik, if you want to submit on 10th January, that's fine. You can submit early if you want. Okay, I'm really concerned about the last date for submission. Okay, so if you want to submit earlier, that's fine too. No problem. Okay, so it looks like for those who have responded, it looks like 16th February. All right, so since no one else has any suggestions, then I guess it will be 16th of January. Okay, so we will add that now. Let's do that now so we get that up on the Project Blast. Okay, so your assignment, your written assignment, assignment 2 will be due on 16th of January. 16th of February, sorry. Okay, Azik, I got you. All right. So let me just add that here to so I'll just write this here so you guys can refer back to it, okay? So due date for written report will be 16th February, okay? 2021. All right, so make note of that. So you still have a good amount of time, all right? So, and that's good. I mean, I have no problem giving you the time, but again, it should be, you know, use the time wisely and do good quality work. That's the most important thing, okay? And then tomorrow's class, like last week, we will continue with our discussion about the assignment. So again, if anybody wants to present the questions that you've come up with and your topic for tomorrow's class, we'll do that. If anybody wants to ask questions about it, anybody wants to present anything for feedback, okay? We're going to be using this week and next week, Thursday class for that, okay? So any feedback that you guys want to have or that you need about your assignment 2, you can do that tomorrow, okay, during the class. All right, I'm going to give you that class time tomorrow. So please Bring any issues you're having, please bring it tomorrow for discussion, okay? And then of course the other students in the class can learn from whatever questions that you ask. All right, so that's the idea before we start the presentations in 2 weeks. Yeah, 2 weeks. Okay, so that's it, I think, for the housekeeping and the project related issues. Any questions or concerns or anything anyone would like to share before we start the lecture? No?
So far, no.
So far, no. Okay. Thank you. Let's start. Okay, so today's class lecture is going to be about youth associations and youth organizations. All right. So just optimize this one. Can you all see the screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. So this week we're going to talk about youth development institutions, okay, specifically on youth associations, okay? So I don't know how many of you, are any of you involved in youth associations? Any members here of youth associations?
No.
No.
No. Anyone? No. Of course, you're involved in student organizations. So of course, as youth, as students, university students, student associations are a form of youth association, but they're not technically, under the law, at least in Malaysia, they're not considered youth associations. They fall under educational or university-based organizations like PASUMA, for example, and others. So youth associations are, of course, outside of universities, and they are registered in Malaysia with the Registrar of Youth, the ROY, as it's called, the Registrar of Youth. So if you want to form a youth association, you have to get permission through the Registrar of Youth. So we're going to talk about youth associations today, and then I'm going to have you do a short activity where I'm going to actually ask you to go online, and I'm actually going to actually ask you to identify a youth association in Malaysia that you would like to join, or hypothetically you'd like to join. Something you find interesting, that's related to your interests, that you might want to join in the future. Okay, so today I'm going to ask you just to go online and identify one youth association that is something that you might consider joining either now or in the future. All right. And that way, that will help you to get to know some of the youth associations in Malaysia. Okay, so let's just first watch this brief video about, oops, that didn't work. Oh no, what did I do? Sorry. Ah, there it is. Okay, this is just a very short video about youth associations. Okay, so let's just watch this first. Oh, wait a minute. Hold on a second. It's not working. Sorry. Let's try that again. Okay.
See the whole world be looking at us, yeah, cause our land is honey, all the future money.
Eles ensinam a fazer o currículo vitae, como estar, como escolher um bom emprego, porque quase todo o critério que tem a ver com a área profissional nós temos a oportunidade de abordar no PTS.
We have it, yes, let the world come and taste this beautiful land, they want it, oh, they need happy to be a part of this continent. All your sisters and your brothers and your friends. Let's get together, let's hold hands and let us dance.
Our work has been to promote ourselves to become actors and agents for peace and change in Africa.
Oh yeah, now let Africa be good. And in the sun or the rain or the street or the plane, we still they get together because let Africa be good. Oh, Nelson Mandela, Lupita Nyong'o. Oh,
Young people are the last to accept injustice. And because we live in a fundamentally unjust world, it's by building on the strengths of children and youth that we can channel energies to ultimately address the most serious problems all of our societies face.
you know what time it is. Let's go. Come on.
Okay, so that was just a very short video, just some examples of some of the things that youth associations do in other countries across the world. Okay, and so you can see that in a lot of countries, youth are doing amazing things. They're doing a lot of great work. In Malaysia as well. Okay, and we're going to talk a little bit about Malaysia in a little while. I showed you one example of the kind of things that youth associations can do in Malaysia in previous class. Do you guys remember the name of that youth association that we talked about last time in Malaysia that's doing really cool things in Sabah? Who remembers the name?
Luga.
What was it? Apa lagi? It closed.
Bersuga.
Basuga. Yes, Basuga. Okay, Basuga. Belia Sukan Gaya Island. Yeah, so Youth and Sports Association of Gaya Island. And so even though most youth associations in Malaysia, they maybe are not so much involved in politics per se, like some of those that we just watched in Africa, Middle East, and stuff like that. Basuga is kind of rare for Malaysia in terms of youth associations. In the fact that they got involved in sort of a political movement of sorts to bring resources to their kampong, to their pulau, to their island. Okay, so they're unique, I think, for Malaysia. But in Malaysia, a lot of youth associations, they do really, really great work. A lot of charity work, a lot of service work. Now we have the Banjir, right, on the East Coast, the floods on the East Coast and in Johor and stuff. So youth associations are always very, very involved in relief efforts, with natural disasters and stuff like that. So they do a lot of great work, and I would really highly encourage all of you to at some point get involved with youth associations. There's a lot of benefit to being involved in youth association work. Okay, so what are some of the roles of youth associations? Well, there's three main roles of youth associations. Okay, they act as you can see on the screen, agents of change, resource linker, and problem solver. All right, and they do it mostly through, as I mentioned, service, community involvement, community development, and non-formal education. Right, non-formal and informal education. All right. They bring together the individual, the family, the community, and the society. All right, so they're involved ideally at all levels. Right, so they try to bring these different groups together. Agents of change are what? What is an agent of change? Can anybody tell me? Who knows what that means? Agent of change. Anyone want to guess? What's an agent of change? Nobody? Come on, somebody just take a guess.
Someone who takes action.
Someone that takes action. Action to do what? What kind of action?
To solve the problem.
Okay, well then you also see problem solver there, right? So what would be the difference between problem solver and agent of change? Okay, Hazik. So Hazik said someone who recognizes that we can do better or that a problem needs to be solved. Yeah, of course, agent of change definitely is involved in problem solving. You can see that problem solver is also on the screen. Okay, so agents of change are those that instigate, right? They sort of lead, or they sort of the first ones to try to bring about positive change to society, okay? Improvement in the way society does things, okay? So it can be reform, right? Fighting corruption, you know, even like changing the law. Like we recently had a change in the voting age for youth, right? So now you guys are all eligible to vote, right? 18 and above, now you can vote. So youth associations are often out in front leading change efforts in society, okay? So young people are often the ones that lead these types of movements to change and to address problems in society, okay? So that's the change, agent of change. The problem solver role, of course, it's involved, it has to do with, like Hazik and Hani mentioned, it has to do with addressing problems, but problem solving is really about addressing specific problems, okay? So for example, if there's something like Banjir, like flood, right? So we have massive problem caused from this type of natural disaster, right? Flooding and so forth. So that's where the youth association is out front trying to address the problem, right? So they're not necessarily trying to make major changes or changes to reform society. They're just trying to address a problem, okay? Like helping people get food and stuff like that during the floods, all right? So that would be more of a problem solver role, which is a bit different than agent of change, okay? So agent of change is more trying to create systemic change in society, right? Either through changing the laws or changing the way people view youth, the way people do things, the customs and the norms of society. They're trying to change those things, right? So that's more of systemic change. Is that clear, the difference?
Yeah.
Does that make sense? Okay. So what's a resource linker? What's a resource linker? Who can give me an example or tell me what a resource linker is? Anybody?
Someone who involves in the process the association wanted to do.
Okay. For example, can you give an example of that?
Orang tengah macam tu. Like you, let's say lah, I'm the native of Gaya Island,
Okay.
and then the people from Besuga, before they knew about Gaya Island, they need someone who can help them to show around, to give them the information regarding what's happening at the Gaya Island.
Okay.
Is it?
And so Basuga plays that role. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's me.
No, I mean, what you mean is Basuga will play that role to link those people to resources on the island. No. Yes or no?
I was trying to say that I am the resource linker.
Huh? Sorry? I didn't hear you.
Yeah, I was trying to say that I am the resource linker.
Oh, here the youth association is playing the role of the resource linker. Okay, so the youth association is trying to link resources. So for example, but no, you're right to use the Gaia Island. Gaia Island, there's many actually examples that they played that role of resource linker. So for example, maybe the residents on Gaia Island, they need to learn how to speak English, okay? So the youth association doesn't necessarily provide the services of classes for English speaking, but they can link the residents on the island to people, tutors, classes outside, for example, right? So they can help the residents go and find those classes and even maybe host those classes for them, right? So the youth in the association are not providing the classes, but they're linking the residents, the youth thing, maybe either the youth or the people on the island, they're linking them to the resources that the people need. Okay, so they play a very important role of linking their constituents, whether it's the youth or the residents in the community, to resources outside. Okay, so that's a very important role, especially with youth, because a lot of times youth have a variety of different problems. They have a variety of different needs, right? They need, for example, sometimes they have mental health issues, depression, suicide. The youth association can't really provide them with counseling, but they can find and locate where the counselors are. They can link them to those counseling resources. Okay, so that's a very important role. Sometimes it's to link youth to funding, like they need funds, like maybe a young person needs a scholarship. They want to pursue their studies. They don't have any money, so they need a scholarship. How do they find a scholarship? They go to the youth association, and the youth association can direct them. Oh, go see this foundation, go see this politician, go see this person, this organization. They can help you get funding for a university. Okay, so that very important role of linking young people to resources in the community is one of the major roles that youth associations play. Okay, they don't necessarily provide directly all the services, but they can link youth to those critical resources. That's when a youth association is really working well, it's very effective at being a resource linker. Okay, so that's how they do it. All right, so these are three major roles of a youth association. Okay, so let's move on. Okay, so in a general sense, a more general sense, the roles of youth associations to develop youth, okay, to help youth develop, to unleash their potential, right? Unleashing their potential, then ultimately youth become partners, right? We used to say in the old days, Zaman dulu, we used to say youth as partners to nation building. We don't hear that language so much anymore. We don't use that language so much anymore, but I think it's still very relevant to Malaysia because we're still in the process of nation building. So we want ultimately young people to be partners in the nation building process, right? To play meaningful roles in society as decision makers, as contributors to the development of the country. Okay, so the Youth Association helps young people to develop by unleashing their potential. What do you think about unleashing youth potential? Do you guys feel like at UPM helps you to unleash your potential? What is the meaning of unleashing potential? Anybody tell me? Can anybody tell me?
Mencungkil bakat.
What is the meaning of that, Hanim?
Unleashing potential.
Okay. So let's use yourself as an example. Use yourself as a case study. How does UPM, for example, help you to unleash your potential?
Unleash your potential. What potential, bro?
You don't know. You don't know what your own potential is. What potential? What is potential? Remember earlier in the class we talked about PYD. We talked about assets, right? So young people having assets. How do we unlock those assets that young people have? For example, honey, maybe you're a very creative person, right? You're very creative. Naturally, you're just very artistic. But you have no outlet to explore your creativity. You have no outlet to learn the ways of expressing your creativity. Okay? So then I'm the youth association and I say, you know what? We have all these young people that are interested in art. They're very creative, but they have no outlet. So we're going to provide a program to help these young people to develop their artistic skills. We're going to call in national artists that are going to tutor them and train them on how to explore their potential as artists. Okay, so I'm unlocking your potential by giving you an opportunity to really pursue the development of your artistic skills and abilities. Okay? So young people who have this potential, they have no way of expressing it. They have no way of developing it. That is the role of youth association. All right? So it could be anything. It could be they have skill at fixing motorbikes. They have skill at, arts. They have skill at sports. They have skills in leadership, right? Do you know how many gang members out there? Gangs, like violent criminal gangs. The leaders of those gangs have incredible leadership skills and leadership abilities. But because they were never channeled into positive leadership development programs and opportunities, they chose to develop their leadership skills in negative ways through gangs, right? In fact, I know one youth worker in Negeri Sembilan in Port Dickson. He's a very good youth worker, and he was asked by one school. There's a school in Negeri Sembilan. They had this problem with this one young person, this one student in the school, right? He was the head of a gang. And he was a very strong. He used to really intimidate the other students, and he was involved in a lot of criminal activity. But he had incredible leadership ability. So this youth worker went in, and the school asked this youth worker, "Can you do something about this kid? He's just causing all kinds of problems. He's the head of this gang. They're involved in all these things. Can you do something?" So the youth worker went in. The youth worker met with this student, got to know the student. They developed a relationship. They meet regularly, and they just talk and discuss. It's over time, because of the relationship the youth worker developed with this student, he was able to channel him into more positive leadership kinds of activities, right? So he got him to leave the gang, and he became one of the leaders of the school in a positive way. He even won awards for his leadership activities and so forth. Okay, so this youth worker was able to take his potential as a leader and channel it to more positive outlets. All right, and so he was able to unleash the student's potential to be a leader. Right, and that's, again, this is the role of the youth association, is to take all these potentials and skills and abilities that are there, they're lying dormant in the young person, and to channel them into positive directions. Okay, so that's what unleashing potential means. It's there, the potential's there, it's just not being tapped, right? Because of no opportunities, no one to guide them, right? And that's the idea behind youth associations, to provide those opportunities. Then eventually, because you've unleashed their potential, the young people become contributing partners to development of the community and of society. All right. And so this is really the main idea behind youth association, right? And their role, their key role. Is that clear? Any questions about that?
Yes.
Okay, Hanim, is it clear now? You got it?
Yes.
So Hanim, I think you're one of those that has a lot of leadership potential, right? So maybe hopefully Pasuma is helping you to unleash and to unlock that leadership potential, to develop it, right? That's the idea. Okay, so the Youth Association is trying to really take on this challenge. All right, and the way they do it is often through volunteerism, all right? So volunteerism is a really powerful approach to helping young people unlock this potential that they have to develop themselves and their abilities. Okay, so there's many different types of volunteer activities that youth associations engage in. Okay, so you can see here, maybe they're doing some environmental activities, environmental cleanup, ecological activities. All right. And the idea is to facilitate youth along with society, or youth engaging in society, to build up their positive values. All right. And no better way to do this than through volunteer work. Okay, so volunteers. So youth associations do a lot of volunteerism, a lot of volunteer work. All right, so you can see there things like St. John's Ambulance is a major one. Red Crescent Society. Those are both considered youth associations. They're actually international. They're actually international youth organizations, but in Malaysia they're also registered as youth associations. And of course, they teach they teach young people a variety of positive values and norms. Okay, so volunteering, contributing back to society, helping people in need, right? Being a good neighbor, good citizen, et cetera, et cetera. Right? And they also learn a lot of skills in the process, right? So think of as as a medic, for example, here, and as you see, think of all the skills that they learn about emergency response, caring for people, health issues, all these things. They learn an incredible amount, and all these things can be very useful for young people later in life. Okay, so building up their skills, right, and giving back to the community, of course. Okay, so yeah, this is just a definition. An altruistic activity. So volunteerism is an altruistic activity where an individual or group provides services for no financial gain to benefit another person, group, or organization. Okay, so I think we all know what volunteerism is, and this is one of the major activities of youth association. Okay, so to enhance youth associations, there's a variety of things that have to occur. So the idea is to develop youth capital, all right, to develop their leadership skills, to develop their sports and recreational opportunities, volunteerism opportunities, right? And youth associations also represent youth voice, okay? So youth associations provide an outlet for young people to voice their opinions on things, right? To give their opinions on things happening in society, all right? And it's important because youth associations should have a positive image to the public, right? Again, the idea here is to change, to help the public to see that young people are doing positive things in society, right? Remember earlier in the class, we talked about how often youth and the way youth are portrayed in society is often negative, right? People often see young people doing negative things. Well, youth associations help society to see young people in a more positive light, yeah, because they're involved in things like volunteerism, community building, and so forth. All right. So enhancing youth associations is accounts for several things, right? As you can see there, right? So developing youth capital. Again, this is more about their personal development, building their skills, building up their competencies, acquiring knowledge, and so forth, right? Developing their leadership capabilities, getting them involved in sports and recreation, volunteerism, as well as capturing their voice, right? Having an outlet for young people to express themselves, right? So this is, again, how youth associations are enhanced. And this is what makes a strong youth association. So if you see a really good youth association, all these elements will be there. Okay. In addition, community development. Okay. So being involved in development of community in different ways. All right. And that, of course, goes hand in hand with things like volunteerism and so forth. All right. But also to have an opportunity to give their opinions about what should be going on in the community. Okay. So representing that youth perspective or that youth voice in issues related to community development. Okay. A good youth association will be a center for non-formal education. Okay, so a place where young people can acquire new skills, new knowledge, and so forth. Okay, we saw this with Basuga. Basuga was very good at providing non-formal education, not only to its youth members, but also to the Pulau Gaya community. Yeah, so even the adults on Pulau Gaya were able to take in these opportunities for non-formal education from Basuga. All right, so Basuga, as I mentioned last time, they would hold classes for the community, right? Classes in different things, cooking, languages, sewing, all these things. Youth associations should also be a center for youth reference. So when young people they need information, for example, right? They need to know how to apply for scholarships, for example. They should be able to go to the youth association. Youth association should be able to help them, right? So it's a sort of a reference center, a referral center for young people, right? And then youth associations ultimately, and this is important, especially in a country like Malaysia, where of course we have always had the challenge of unity in the society. We want to preserve the unity of the country. So youth associations should act as agents of unity, right? So they should bring young people different backgrounds together whenever possible, right? So whether it's an interfaith kind of situation or interracial situation, or bringing together young people from different socioeconomic statuses, whatever it is, the idea is to unify and to unite young people, right? So that we can have a more unified society. All right. So these are really the elements of enhancing youth associations. Okay. Any questions so far? Any comments? No.
Not yet.
So expectations of youth associations. What are they trying to do? What is it that they're aiming for in terms of young people? Well, developing sustainable futures. Okay. This is not only for in terms of building up young people's individual skills and abilities, but also being involved in helping the society to become more sustainable, right? So that's why nowadays a lot of youth associations are involved in like our environmental issues, right? Ecology, conservation, stuff like that, because of the issue of sustainability. Sustainability is a major issue now, as we all know. Okay, so youth associations should be thinking about that, right? Because youth are the future, as they say, right? And so young people should be concerned about the future that is ahead of them, and what is society going to look like down the road, all right? So developing a sustainable future is a very important expectation of a youth association. Having appropriate assets and facilities. Okay, so we talked about in the class on youth PYD assets, remember, on the 40 developmental assets, we talked about the internal and external assets. Okay, so the external assets relate to what? What were the external assets again? Anybody remember from our class on PYD assets? What are external developmental assets? Who remembers? Anyone? So, anyone remember? External assets. What are the external developmental assets? Okay, the internal assets and the external assets.
Family support.
Okay, yeah, that's one. Thanks, Amir. Family support, right? So young people who have greater family support as an external asset tend to be better off in terms of their overall development, right? What are some others? Anyone want to get? I want to throw out.
Community values youth.
Community that values youth, right? So having a community that really values the presence and the involvement of youth. Yes. Others? There were 20, right? So it was 40 and 40. 40 internal, 40 external. Okay.
Family boundaries.
Family boundaries. Yeah, having healthy family boundaries. Others? Any others?
Achievement motivation.
Achievement motivation. Is that an internal or external asset?
Internal.
Internal. That's within the individual, right? So that's an internal asset. If you have that motivation to achieve something, that drive to achieve something, that's an internal asset that you have, okay? In this case, I'm talking about the external asset, like you've already mentioned some. Anyone other than Hanim want to give another external asset? Give Hanim a rest.
Peer influence.
Okay, thanks, Amir. Yeah, the positive influence of peers. So if you have positive relationships with peers, of course, that's another external asset, an asset that's outside of you, in your environment, right? So youth associations, one of their roles is to provide access for young people to have access to these assets, right? So facilities. So for example, if you're a sports-based youth association, you should provide access for young people to have opportunities to play sports, So maybe you have maybe they have their own courts, their own futsal court, they have their own bola field, whatever it is. Right. So Basuga, for example, they were big on bola and volleyball. Right. So they have their own facilities. They have their own padang for bola, and they have the padang for volleyball. Right. So the young people, anytime they want to come and play volleyball or main bola, it's there. Okay. So they know that the youth association is providing that facility for them. Okay. So that's a really important role that youth association has to play. So they should have some facilities. They should have some assets, external assets that the youth can access. Okay. And then ideally they should become a center of excellence for some, in some way, right? They should be, again, based on their specialty, whatever it is, they should be known as a center of excellence. All right. So we are very good at like Basuga is known in the country as being a center of excellence for volleyball. Their young people always join the tournaments in volleyball and they always win the tournaments. So they are seen as a center of excellence for that. Okay, in addition to all those other things they do, but that's just one of the things that they're known for. Okay, so a youth association should be known for something. It should be known to be great in something. Like St. John's Ambulance, everybody knows what they're good at. They're excellent at, emergency response and stuff like that. Okay, so it's good if they have that something of, that people know them by as a center of excellence. Okay, and that's a way of attracting young people, a way of attracting youth who are interested in that to join. Okay, and they should also be financially stable. And this is a big issue for a lot of youth associations. Okay. So if you're a registered youth association with the Ministry of Youth and Sports under Roy, the Registrar of Youth, every year the youth association is given some funding, right? So it used to be 5,000 ringgit per year. I don't know if it's still that amount. It may have changed, but if they're a registered youth association, every year the ministry will give them at least, again, it used to be 5,000 ringgit, and that's to do their activities. So some youth associations, maybe they have one program every month. Maybe one big program every month. Some they're more active than that. Okay, but that 5,000 per month provides them with a little bit of seed funding for them to carry on their activities. But often that's not enough. Okay, especially nowadays, if you're in Selangor, if you're in KL, or you're in Johor or somewhere. Penang, very expensive to do a lot of programs. So 5,000 doesn't get you very far. So often youth associations, they have to raise their own money to be financially stable. And this is one of the big problems that they face. Okay, because it's a lot of them, they have this challenge of how to raise money, how to have a consistent flow of funds for their programs. All right. But at the same time, this is one of the things that they learn. And it's good for young people to be involved in this. It's hard to do fundraising, but of course they often will go out and learn how to do fundraising. They'll learn the different ways. Either they become entrepreneurs, they start to, to make their own products or sell products, so they have to learn how to be more entrepreneurial, right? And so this is one of the skills that they often learn by being involved in youth association is how to raise money, how to be fundraisers, how to be entrepreneurs. And this is how they get their funds for their programs. Okay, so it's an expectation because they cannot run their programs without being financially stable. All right, so this is one of the big expectations of youth associations. Unfortunately, many youth associations, they close down or they have to shut down because they don't have enough funds. It's one of the major reasons why youth associations become inactive, actually, in Malaysia. Okay, and some other expectations is they have to have capable leadership, right? You have to have good leaders. If you don't have good leaders, then of course the organization cannot flourish. All right, so capable leadership is really important. Now, previously, when the youth age, the official youth age was 15 to 40, many of the leaders of youth associations were what age? Who can guess? Back in the day when the age was 15 to 40, most of the youth leaders were what age? Around what age? 15? 18? Around what age do you think the leaders were? when the age range was 15 to 40? Who can tell me?
$28.
Yeah, I mean, not an exact age, but between 15 to 40, what do you think around the average age was? 28? Who said 28? Honey, was that you?
Yes.
Somebody other than Hanim? I don't want Hanim to take all the.
Okay, I will
I appreciate your contributions, Hanim, but I'd like to hear from your classmates also. Who else? Come on, someone else other than Hanim. The youth leaders are usually what age? The age is 15 to 40. What do you think? "48 students in the class." Come on, somebody.
Excuse me, Prof. There's some answer in the chat box.
Oh, sorry, my chat box is not open. Okay, I'll keep my chat box open. I apologize. That's my fault. All right, so we got some answers here. Okay. Okay, 22, 23, late 30s. 35, 30, 25 and above. Okay, so yeah, so good guesses. So it's mostly the older youth, of course. Those that are usually those that are in their 30s and above. Okay. Why would that be? For obvious reasons. Why would it be the older youth, especially those that are 30 and above, leading the youth associations? More mature, yep, absolutely. They're more mature, more experiences, absolutely, yep. Any other reasons? More skilled, of course, because they're older, so they have more experience, they have probably more education, they're more mature, so that's true. They also have more access to funds, believe it or not. So a lot of times, like I just mentioned about the challenge of funding, you know. So okay, I think a good one. Yeah, emotionally stable when it comes to making decisions. Yeah, they just tend to be more mature when it comes to decision making, right? So yes, good one. That's very good, Mimi. More connections. So yeah, going back to funding. So they often have better connections because they're usually in the 30s, you're usually a bit more stable in terms of your job. You've started your career. So they have more access to, yes, connections, networks, and then that can help them get funding. It's hard, like if I were to ask you guys to go out and get funding for your association, you know, at your age and given your experience and your networking and so forth, it'd be much harder for you than someone who's in their 30s. Okay, so this is a big issue because when they reduce the age from 15 to 40 to 15 to 30, a lot of the youth that were in between 30 and 40, they were very upset. You know, they were very upset, and they're very much afraid that the youth associations would not be able to survive because of the reduction in the age. Like those in their 20s are not really capable of maintaining and sustaining the youth association. So it's been a big issue in the field. This issue of the age going from 40 to 30, right? Because it's mostly the 30-year-olds that are keeping the associations going. Okay. So yeah, so that's a really big issue. Okay. Sorry, I apologize for not seeing the chat. Thank you for pointing that out to me. Okay. Professional and effective administration. This is another one related to age. Okay, so of course, older youth are going to be more professional and be better able to administer the youth association. All right. Those under 30, of course, they can do it. Bolela, tapi. A lot of people suspect, oh, they're going to have a hard time. You know, if we reduce the age to 30, you know, oh, they won't be able to sustain. They're not professional enough. They don't know how to run the associations and so forth. Okay, so this was a big issue. Okay, and another expectation they must have strong support from all parties, and this is true. Youth associations have to have very good networks. They have to have networks with government people. They have to have networks with private corporations, NGOs. Okay, again, they need people to support their activities. They need people to be involved in their activities. Okay, and the more connections and networks they have, the better. Okay, they'll have more participation. They'll have more support, more funding, etc., etc. Okay, so you can see to have a good, strong youth association, there's a lot that's involved. Okay, it's not easy. It's not easy, which is why a lot of them actually don't make it and they actually fold. You know, they sort of become inactive because it's not easy to maintain a youth association. Okay. So to attract, to have quality youth associations, or actually programs within the work of associations, right? You need to attract youth. Okay, the first one, you need to attract youth to become active. They have to be able to integrate young people's needs and their abilities in those programs. You know, the experiences must be enjoyable and challenging because young people love enjoyable and challenging experiences, right? The activities must be open to all members and even beyond the membership. So the general youth population should be able to join, okay? And they should be in line with whatever the community wants, you know, the needs of the community and the, you know, what the community is asking for, all right? So the activities have to support what the community, whatever community you're talking about, whether it's UPM community or it's Kampong or whatever it is, must be in line with what the community wants. So again, so the other thing is when youth associations, they put on these different programs, they have to make sure that they are able to attract young people. And this is a challenge as well, all right? This is a challenge. So for example, you're going to do some volunteer activity. Well, not everybody is interested in doing volunteerism, right? And the more enjoyable you can make it, right, the better. The more that activity will involve youth and build their skills, right, the more they'll be interested to do it. And of course, sometimes the more adventurous, the more challenging it is, young people like that as well. So when young youth associations are trying to put on programs, they have to think about these things, right? What are the kind of programs that are going to attract youth? Okay, all activities should, sorry, there's one more, stimulate creativity and self-directed learning, okay? These types of programs are not like classroom learning. Of course, they are experiential, going out in the community and doing things with the community. So they should also stimulate creativity and self-directed learning. Okay, some challenges. Okay, so some of the challenges. So getting guidance from different levels of society, all right? So because youth associations are led by young people, of course, they need input from adults, okay? And so this is often a problem. When youth are cut off from adults, it creates problems, right? So youth associations, they have to have good relationships with different levels of society, especially adults in different positions. You know, so it's really good if youth associations have adult advisors, for example, right? And I think that my personal opinion is that one of the reasons why big youth organizations like Scouts, like Red Crescent Society, St. John's Ambulance, these big international organizations, one of the things that they're very successful at is including different age groups, right, within what they do, right? So in any of those organizations, you have, even though they're youth associations, they're really youth organizations or youth serving organizations, okay? Because they're not entirely led by youth. A youth association is really led by youth. But in those organizations, you have all different levels. You have young people, you have old people, you have youth, right? You have teenagers, and so forth. So because it's intergenerational, they get a lot of support and it works really as a community, right? And includes the different levels in society. And I think that's one of the things that makes them successful, okay? Ethnocentrism politics is dangerous in youth associations. Can anybody tell me why? Think about what we said before about one of the goals of youth associations and the goal of unity. Why is ethnocentrism Are ethnocentric politics dangerous in youth association? Anybody want to share? Take a guess. What's the danger in having this kind of ethnocentric politics within youth association? Anyone? Anyone? Okay, Nadira, that's a good guess. Yeah, that's good. They won't accept others' opinions. Yeah, absolutely. They're closed-minded. At least to being closed-minded. Yep, that's true. Azika, because there will be different opinion about their own political beliefs. Yeah, they don't, well, often they don't, yeah, they don't want to accept differences of opinion. Okay. So it creates a sort of barrier. You cannot see the bigger picture. You cannot accept other possibilities. You cannot think outside the box. You cannot be creative because you're fixated on seeing things a certain way. You know, only our way of seeing things, right? That's very dangerous. Okay, because that can hurt the association. Okay, so Hazik said the opinion that one's own way of life is natural or correct. Okay. Yeah, I think that's okay. I mean, I think it's okay to believe that your way is the best way. I think that's normal. I think most people believe that. I mean, why do you, for example, why do you choose a certain way of doing things? Because you feel it's the best way to do things. I think that's okay, but you have to accept the fact that others also have a way of doing things, right? And you have to respect it. Bottom line, if you want to live in a respectful, peaceful society, you have to accept differences of opinion, right? And I mean, that was actually for me one of the reasons why I was very impressed with Islam. When I converted to Islam, was one of the things was actually, if you look at Islamic history, the differences of opinion within Islam among the scholars of Islam, very wide, right? There's a lot of differences of opinion, but they're all accepted, and they're all seen as acceptable, even though they're different. So I have an opinion. That's my opinion based on what I've experienced, based on my knowledge. I follow this opinion. However, I know you also have an opinion, and I have to respect that opinion. I may not agree with you. Okay, I can disagree with you, but I have to respect the fact that that's your opinion. Okay, but ethnocentrism says no, no, because it's coming from my people, therefore it has to be true. Okay, and that is very dangerous because that's completely antithetical. It's wrong in the sense that it's essentially it's what we would call tribalism, right? My tribe, right or wrong, rather than what's true or what's right. Okay, and so it's a very dangerous mentality to have, right? And yes, it creates Selena very good. It creates hatred, misunderstanding, and hostility between societies, between groups within society. Okay, so again, we have to. One of the things about a mature society, a mature community, is the ability to agree to disagree. Okay, so we have to accept the fact that I may not agree with you, but I have to respect your view on it. It is your view, it is your opinion, and I have to respect it. And we can even debate it. We can even debate, and I can even have a civilized debate and explain to you why I think you're wrong and I'm right, right? But at the end of the day, we have to agree. Yes, it is acceptable to agree to disagree. We have to agree to disagree, right? So based on evidence, based on truth, rather than just based on who it's coming from. Oh, it's coming from my people, therefore it must be true. No, 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 that's false. That's just tribalism. Okay? And we have to reject that way of seeing things. So we have to have a patriotic spirit without doubting our own identity. In other words, we can be proud about who we are. You know, we can be happy and grateful for who we are, and we can be proud of our community. But at the same time, we have to realize that we live in a diverse society. Okay, and that is the maturity that a youth association is expected to have. And these are the kind of ideas. This is the kind of mentality we want the youth associations to create, to generate in society among youth, right? So that we can have a peaceful and productive society. Okay, because otherwise we will not have that. We will have a society that is always at each other's throats, and it's gonna hurt everybody. All right. So these are some of the challenges that youth associations try to overcome if they are functioning well. Okay, if they're functioning well. And one of the things I really like is if you go to the MBM, Majlis Belia Malaysia, the Malaysian Youth Council, it's nice. Because they're represented. Malaysian Youth Council is represented by all the different youth associations in the country. Okay, so they're elected. So you have the representatives from all the different groups in society in the Malaysian Youth Council. Okay, so it's a council of young people representing the different communities of youth in Malaysia. And they come together and they make decisions and do programs for all youth in the country. Very good. Okay, it's a very good idea, and it's a very good effort to do these kind of things. Okay, so that's just things that youth associations have to overcome. Here's some others. Okay, using media and social media, especially in a positive manner. Okay, because social media really helps to form perceptions. Okay, so again, we want adult society to see youth in a positive manner, right? So social media can be a powerful tool, very powerful tool, to portray young people, all the positive things that young people do in society, right? To combat, to sort of combat all this negative publicity that youth often get. Okay, so when youth associations go out and they do programs in the community and they're helping the flood victims and they're doing all these great things, they can show that on social media, and then people can see, wow, these youth are really fantastic. That's what Basuga did. They completely changed the view of youth on Pulau Gaya, and even in parts of Sabah, the mainland, just by showing what youth can do. It was very powerful example. Using electronic media as a platform to educate and voice needs appropriately. Okay, so yeah, so youth can use social media also to voice out when they feel that something needs to be shared. Their views need to be shared. Of course, it has to be done appropriately. It has to be done with the correct, etiquette, right? With in a way that's going to be perceived as professional, etc. So it has to be done appropriately. How it's done is just as important as what you're saying, right, on social media. So do it in a professional manner, right? So the youth association is coming out and speaking in a very professional manner. People will then take you seriously. But if you just come out and you're using all kinds of profanity and voicing and shouting and screaming, people won't take you seriously. Okay, so this is the way youth associations need to come out, right? Need to come out in a very professional way. Okay, so some additional challenges. Enhancing relationships and holistic cooperation, okay, between societies, institutions, educational institutions, family institutions, right? So again, this is sort of the resource linker role, okay? So by having these networks and relationships, they're able to build these relationships between these different institutions in society. Okay, so that helps with their work, helps with getting people to support their programs. It helps with getting their image and their, again, how they're portrayed by adult society. It helps with that as well, right? So it helps in a lot of ways. And this is another challenge that youth associations often face. It's not having these kinds of networks, this cooperation between the different groups in society. Okay, let's take a break just for about 7 or 8 minutes. Catch our breath, get away from the computer for a few minutes. All right. We're almost done, but just a few more, but let's just take a quick break. Boleh?
Boleh.
Okay, so come back in a few minutes. All right, come back at 9:20. Okay?
Okay, Prof.
Thanks. Okay, let's continue. Oh, it's a little bit early, sorry. Can I continue? Is everyone back?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's just finish up this, I think just a couple
Yes,
more
Prof.
slides. Just a couple more slides, we'll finish up. And then until for the last couple minutes, I'll ask you to go online and find your youth association. Okay, so youth as partners in development, the role for non-formal education. So as I mentioned before, non-formal education is a very important part of what youth associations are supposed to do. Okay, so the question is, are they capable of doing it? Okay, so these are some of the questions that are asked to determine whether they are able to do it. So are they active, number one? Are their programs targeted towards changing behaviors or merely just to socialize? You know, some youth associations are very good at just putting together programs where young people socialize, and that's good, that's important. But ideally, if they're really about change, if they're playing that role as agents of change, the idea is to really help young people to develop their behaviors. They have to change their behavior. Do the youth organizations or associations believe in continuous upgrading of resources, all right, as inputs to enhance non-formal education, all right? So they should be involved in trying to improve their expertise, their finances, their infrastructure and equipment. One of the great things about Basuga was when we interviewed the leaders of Basuga, they were always thinking about how they could improve the organization, yeah? So they're always talking about how they can bring in more expertise, or how they're trying to develop their own expertise, like learning how to be better fundraisers, or learning how to recruit more youth, or learning how to create more partnerships with the community, stuff like that. So they're always trying to upgrade themselves, right, as an organization. So that's really important. Do the organizations have support systems to play the role as a provider of non-formal education? Okay. Do they have the leadership, the governance, the networking, and the teamwork? Basuga they realized that they didn't have all the know-how or all the expertise to provide non-formal education, which is why they became a linker, a resource linker, right? So they would invite organizations from KK, Kota Kinabalu, to come over to the Pulau, to the island, to run some of their classes, the different classes that they provided, okay? So they created these support systems by networking, partnering with other organizations. Okay, so they realized they couldn't do it all themselves. They had to rely on others to help. Right. So do the organizations have these kind of support systems that allow them to provide non-formal education? Okay, so that's the question. These are some of the questions that they have to ask. NFE is essential for personal development and lifelong learning, okay? And it's through the NFE provided by youth associations as one of the key ingredients for addressing the youth's developmental needs. Okay, so this is where young people in Malaysia can partake in non-formal education, increase their skills, their competencies. So youth associations play a really important role, all right? And that's why we need a lot of youth associations that are strong, that are well organized, that are well funded, that are effective in doing what they do, because this is where young people can acquire their different developmental assets, right? Again, going back to the example I gave about unleashing potential, they provide that outlet, they provide those opportunities for youth to unleash their potential. Okay, so they play a very important role. That's why they need to be strong, they need to be effective. Okay. Now, just quickly, a checklist. So a checklist for helping youth associations to unleash youth potential. All right. Establishing a model youth association at all administrative levels, okay, as a center of excellence. So we still in Malaysia, we still don't have a good model of what a strong youth association as a center of excellence looks like, okay? We have yet to develop that model, which is, I think, something that we really need. You know, what does a really great youth association as a center of excellence in providing NFE look like? What does it look like, right? What are the components? What is it? What are the elements? You know, What I've mentioned today in this lecture are some of the things that we know from like best practices and from studying youth associations, but we don't really have a strong model, an overall model, okay? Educating local communities and institutions to take responsibility and uplifting the capability of youth associations as providers of NFE, okay? So educating adults really in understanding the need for having strong youth associations, all right? So still a lot of people don't really know what youth associations are, what their role is, and why they're important. Okay, so more education is needed. Building the human resource capacity of youth associations. Okay, so helping the youth themselves that run youth associations, building up their capacity, providing them with, for example, leadership skills or accounting skills, for example, and how to maintain their finances and stuff like that. Helping the associations with the needed infrastructure and infrastructure. Okay, so that's an important need. They need infrastructure. Nowadays, they need infrastructure, such as computer equipment or whatever it is, the technical equipment that they need. Providing developmental training to sustain their role as dynamic and proactive providers of NFE. All right, so ongoing training is needed for the members of the association to help them to sustain their activities. And then, of course, establishing a monitoring and evaluation system toward professionalizing youth organizations. Okay, so evaluation is very important. And a lot of the youth associations in Malaysia, they don't do evaluation. They don't really do evaluation of their programs, of their work to know how they can improve. All right. And so that's a really important part of anytime, as you guys, as HRD people, you should know that anytime you do any kind of training, okay, so in this case, youth associations that are involved in non-formal education and training, they have to be able to evaluate their activities to improve them, all right? So these are just some of the ways that we can further improve and help youth associations to become better, right? To become stronger and to become more effective at helping youth, okay? Some other ways. Okay, so we won't do this today. The questions for discussion I'm going to save. Okay, so that's it. So are there any questions about youth associations that we've talked about?
Excuse me, Prof. I have
Yeah.
a question.
Please go ahead, Mimi.
Is there any difference between association and organization?
I was actually waiting for someone to ask that question. So I'm very glad you asked that question. So youth organization is a bigger, like the bigger umbrella. So in youth organizations can be, they can be like youth serving organizations. Youth serving organizations are not necessarily led by youth. You know, they can be led by adults, but they provide programs for youth. Okay, that would be a youth serving organization. Okay, so a youth organization is like the bigger umbrella term. So any organization that's doing something with youth, you can call a youth organization. Okay, but specifically youth associations are underneath youth organizations. Those are specific types of organizations that are youth led. Okay, so like according to the Malaysian Youth Policy and the Malaysian Youth Act, youth associations can only involve young people within the age of youth, 15 to 30, right? So that's a youth association. So it's more of a specific type of youth organization. But youth organization, there's no limits. I mean, there's no like in terms of age and stuff. Anybody that wants to work with youth, you know. So like for example, those big organizations, the international ones like Scouts and Youth, Scouts, Red Crescent, all those that I mentioned before. Those are actually youth organizations because they also involve adults, right? And of course, much of what they do is youth development related, okay? And of course, youth are very much involved and so forth, but they're not youth associations in the sense that it's not just youth that are involved in those, okay? So youth organization is the bigger umbrella and youth association is a more specific type of youth organization, okay? So I'm glad you asked that because I didn't clarify that. So good catch.
Okay,
Is that-
Prof. Thank
Is, it,
you.
is that clear? I hope that's clear.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Any other questions? Okay, so if not, then I will stop sharing. We have about 15 minutes before 9:45. Usually I let you go at 9:45. So now I want you guys to go online, okay, on your own. Just go online. You can go on Facebook, you can go on Instagram, you can go on the web, wherever, and try to identify a Malaysian Youth Association that you think might be of interest to you at some point in your life as a youth that you might want to get involved in, okay? Either as a volunteer, as a member, something that is of interest to you. Try to find one, try to locate one. You may want to try the Malaysian Youth Council home website. They may have some of their members listed there. Okay, I'm going to let you just explore on your own. Okay, try to figure it out on your own. Facebook is probably a very good source of information related to youth associations. I think almost all youth associations in Malaysia have Facebook pages. Okay, so you may want to try FB. Okay, just go online and try to find one. And then when you find one, in Pucha Blast, I mentioned that. Let me just go to Pucha Blast. Okay, so there's a link here. You can just add your the name of the association and its whatever website, whether it's a Facebook page or website or whatever. You can just post it on this on the Padlet list that I've created here. Okay. So go ahead and do that. You got 15 minutes now. You can finish it up later. If you can't find it now in 15 minutes, you can find it later and just add it to the Padlet. Okay. There's the Padlet. All right, so go ahead and see if you can find one. Do some web surfing. Okay, everyone, so it's about 9:45, so I'm going to let you go. We'll end the class now. So just go ahead and at some point, for those that have not put up your association yet, just add it to the Padlet at any time, okay? Please finish that up. All righty, so inshallah, there's nothing else. See you guys tomorrow. And remember, please bring your questions or anything you'd like to share about assignment 2 tomorrow to the class, okay? Questions or whatever related to the assignment. Okay? Sound okay? Sound good? See you next week. See you next week. See you tomorrow, inshallah.
Okay, Prof.
Thank you,
All right.
Prof.
Thank you, Bro.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you, Prof. Have a nice day ahead.
Prof.
Lagi, inshallah.
Thank you, Prof.
Okay. See you tomorrow, inshallah.